Commander Jisoo Kim rubbed her tired eyes as she stared at the holographic display floating before her command chair. The Zephyrian border fleet had been patrolling this empty sector for 3 months, without seeing anything more interesting than space debris and dying stars. Now finally something had appeared on their sensors. The unidentified vessel drifted like a dead whale in the cosmic ocean, its dark hull reflecting the pale light of distant stars. Scorch marks and what looked like impact craters covered its surface, telling a story of some terrible battle or accident. "Lieutenant Hyun, what are your scanners telling us about this thing?" Jisoo asked, leaning forward in her chair. Lieutenant Hyun's forearms danced across his control panel, his reptilian features concentrated in thought. "Very strange readings, Commander. The materials are unfamiliar, but primitive. Looks like they tried to copy some of our basic alloy compositions but got them all wrong." He paused, his yellow eyes widening slightly. "Wait, I'm getting a match in our database. This appears to be from that new planet the exploration fleet discovered last year. Earth, I think they called it." Jisoo nodded slowly. She remembered the reports. Earth was a small blue world on the very edge of civilized space, populated by bipedal creatures who had only recently figured out how to leave their own atmosphere. The galactic community had been mildly interested for about a week, before moving on to more important matters. "Any life signs?" she asked. "Negative, Commander. No energy signatures at all. This ship is completely dead. Probably suffered some kind of catastrophic engine failure while trying to reach our space. These humans always bite off more than they can chew." The bridge fell silent except for the gentle hum of the ship's systems. Around them, the crew of mixed alien species went about their duties with practiced efficiency. A Corallian engineer checked atmospheric readings with her tentacles, while a crystalline Vorthan navigator calculated their position using mathematical songs only his species could understand. Admiral Thargon's deep voice suddenly filled the bridge through the communication system. "Commander Kim, I'm seeing your sensor reports. Standard first contact protocol applies here. Board the vessel, assess any survivors, and prepare the standard diplomatic package." Jisoo straightened in her chair. "Understood, Admiral. Shall I request a diplomatic team from the flagship?" "Negative. This appears to be a simple rescue operation. These primitive species usually just need medical aid and a ride home. Handle it at your level and file the standard reports." The Admiral's dismissive tone irritated Jisoo slightly. She had been in the border fleet for 15 years and had encountered dozens of new species. Most were indeed primitive, desperately seeking the Empire's protection and technology. But something about this situation felt different, though she couldn't put her finger on what. "Very well, sir. Kim out." She turned to her tactical officer. "Ensign Minho Park, prep the boarding shuttle. Standard first contact loadout." Ensign Park, a young Zephyrian with barely 2 years of service, nodded eagerly. "Yes, Commander. How many in the boarding party?" "Take a medical team, 2 security officers, and a translator droid. These humans probably don't even have universal communication devices yet." Jisoo stood and stretched her long limbs. "I'll lead the team myself. It's been too quiet out here lately." As the boarding shuttle prepared for launch, Jisoo studied the human vessel more carefully. The USS Dauntless, according to the faded markings on its hull, looked nothing like the elegant ships of the Galactic Empire. Where Zephyrian vessels flowed like water with smooth curves and organic shapes, the human ship was all hard angles and brutal efficiency. It looked more like a weapon than a spacecraft. "Launching now, Commander," Park reported from the pilot's seat. The shuttle glided through space toward the silent human vessel. As they drew closer, Jisoo could see more details of the damage. Burn marks scored the hull in precise patterns, and several sections showed signs of being deliberately modified, rather than accidentally damaged. "That's odd," muttered Dr. Kira Vale, the Andromedan medical officer. Her blue skin shimmered as she studied her scanner readings. "These impact patterns don't look random, they're too organized." "Probably just the way their primitive armor failed," Jisoo replied, but doubt crept into her voice. "Commander, I'm hailing the vessel on all frequencies," Park reported. No response. Their communication systems must be completely fried. The shuttle's docking clamps engaged with a metallic clang that echoed through both vessels. As the airlock began its cycling process, Jisoo felt a strange chill run down her spine. Something was watching them. She was certain of it, though. All their instruments insisted the ship was dead. Beginning atmospheric exchange, Park announced. Their air is actually breathable. Oxygen, nitrogen, trace gases. Very similar to a Class M environment. As the airlock door began to open with a pneumatic hiss, none of them noticed the subtle change in the human ship's energy signature. Tiplaup. Within its hull, systems that had been dormant for weeks began to wake up, responding to the presence of visitors with electronic whispers too quiet for Zephyrian sensors to detect. The almost imperceptible hum that began emanating from the Dauntless was not the sound of a dying ship. It was the sound of a predator opening its eyes. Captain Do-Hyun Lee felt the familiar tingle of the hibernation pod's revival system as his consciousness slowly returned. The cryogenic fluid drained away with a soft whoosh, and his eyes snapped, open to see familiar red emergency lights painting the Dauntless bridge in crimson shadows. His body moved with practiced efficiency, muscles responding instantly despite months of artificial sleep. This was what they had trained for, what they had been waiting for during the long, cold journey to the outer rim. "Captain, we have visitors," came the soothing voice of Arya, the ship's artificial intelligence. Her tone was as calm as if she were announcing dinner was ready. "Zephyrian border fleet, 3 vessels, they've taken our bait." Do-Hyun's lips curved into a grim smile as he stepped from the pod, his bare feet touching the cold metal deck. Around him, 29 other hibernation chambers hissed open in perfect synchronization. Steam rose from each pod as his hand-picked crew began to emerge. These weren't ordinary sailors or even regular military personnel. Each person climbing out of those pods was a specialist, chosen from Earth's most elite units. Major Sun-Mi Choi rolled her shoulders as she stepped from her chamber, her muscular frame moving like a coiled spring. She had been a commando in the Korean Special Forces before volunteering for this mission. Next to her, Lieutenant Taehyun Bae stretched his arms, his sniper training evident in the way his eyes immediately scanned for potential threats and vantage points. "Tactical assessment, Major Choi?" Do-Hyun asked, accepting a steaming cup of coffee that materialized from a wall dispenser. The hot liquid helped chase away the last effects of hibernation. Sun-Mi's fingers danced over a holographic display that materialized in front of her. 12 hostiles in the boarding party, sir. Standard Zephyrian energy weapons, nothing special. 3 ships in loose formation, maintaining distance of approximately 2,000 kilometers. They're following textbook first contact procedures. She paused, a predatory grin spreading across her face. Exactly as intelligence predicted they would. Do-Hyun nodded, feeling satisfaction warm his chest. For 50 years, Earth had been playing the galaxy's greatest game of deception. While other civilizations saw humans as primitive newcomers barely capable of interstellar flight, Earth had been quietly infiltrating every corner of known space. Ships like the Dauntless had been drifting through alien territory for decades, their crews in hibernation, their hulls disguised to look damaged and helpless. Each rescue operation had taught humanity more about galactic technology, military tactics, and alien psychology. The Zephyrians thought they were encountering another desperate species seeking help. They had no idea they were looking at apex predators. "The Dauntless isn't broken," Do-Hyun murmured to himself, remembering the words from his mission briefing. "She's hunting?" "Sir?" asked Lieutenant Kiwon Nam, the ship's communications officer, as he pulled on his uniform. "Nothing, Lieutenant, just remembering why we're here." Do-Hyun set down his coffee cup and moved to the captain's chair. "Area, initiate Trojan Protocol." "Trojan Protocol initiated, Captain. All systems coming online." The transformation was remarkable to watch. Throughout the ship, panels that had appeared to be simple hull plating began to slide away with mechanical precision. Behind them, weapon systems that would make a Zephyrian admiral weep with envy extended into firing position. Particle beam, arrays, plasma torpedo launchers, and electromagnetic pulse generators all emerged from their hiding places. The ship's hull itself began to change. What the Zephyrians had mistaken for battle damage was actually adaptive armor plating in its camouflage configuration. Now, those same plates rearranged themselves, overlapping and interlocking, to form an incredibly dense protective shell. The key, angular design they had dismissed as primitive engineering was actually optimized for both stealth and combat effectiveness. "Engines coming online," reported Chief Engineer Minji Yu from her station. "Fusion reactors at full power. All stealth. Systems disengaging. Weapon systems active," added Gunnery Sergeant Jamin O, his scarred hands moving over targeting displays with expert precision. "We have locks on all 3 Zephyrian vessels." Lieutenant Nam was monitoring the enemy boarding party through hidden cameras throughout the ship. "They've entered Cargo Bay 3, sir, walking right into our trap just like sheep to slaughter." Do-Yun watched the tactical display as 12 red dots representing the Zephyrian boarding party moved deeper into his ship. They were following standard procedures, sweeping for survivors and checking for salvageable technology. They had no idea that every step was being monitored, every movement anticipated. "How are they looking, Nam?" he asked. "Confident, sir. Maybe even a little bored. Commander Kim is leading them personally. She's treating this like a routine rescue operation." "Good. Let them get comfortable." Do-Hyun stood and straightened his uniform jacket. "Major Choi, prepare the reception committee. Full combat gear, but keep weapons holstered initially. We want them to understand their situation before we demonstrate our capabilities." Sunmi grinned and nodded to her team. Within minutes, 20 of Earth's most dangerous soldiers were armed and moving through the ship's corridors like shadows. They knew every inch of the Dauntless, every hiding spot and ambush point. "Arya, what's the status of our guests?" "The boarding party has split into 3 groups, Captain. 4 checking the engine room, 4 examining the bridge area, and 4 investigating crew quarters. Commander Kim remains with the bridge group." "Perfect." Do-Hyun cracked his knuckles, a habit from his younger days in the Korean Navy. Time to show the galaxy what happens when you underestimate humanity. The hunt was about to begin. Admiral Thargon's 6 eyes stared at his tactical display in complete bewilderment. The primitive human vessel that had been drifting dead in space moments ago was now blazing with energy signatures that made his flagship's power core look like a dying candle. "This cannot be accurate," he muttered, his scaled fingers tapping nervously on his command chair. "Run a full diagnostic on all sensor arrays." His tactical officer, a young Zephyrian named Veltar, worked frantically at his station. "Sir, diagnostics show all systems functioning perfectly. The readings they're off the charts. That human ship is generating more power than our entire battle group combined." Around the bridge, the crew of various alien species exchanged worried glances. A Corellian engineer's tentacles writhed anxiously as she monitored energy readings that shouldn't exist. The crystalline Vorthon navigator had stopped his mathematical singing entirely, his gem-like body reflecting the red warning lights now flashing throughout the bridge. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the boarding team," reported communications. Officer Zekra, her voice trembling slightly. "Put it through immediately," Thargon commanded, expecting to hear Commander Kim's voice requesting emergency evacuation. Instead, the hologram that flickered to life above the command deck made his blood run cold. Commander Jisoo Kim knelt on the deck of the human ship, her hands clasped behind her head in the universal position of surrender. Her normally composed face showed confusion and something Thargon had never seen there before: fear. Behind her stood a human male in dark military gear that looked far more advanced than anything in the Empire's arsenal. The human's face was calm, almost friendly, but his eyes held the cold calculation of an apex predator. "I am Captain Lee of the Terran Defense Corps," the human said, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone accustomed to command. "Your people are unharmed, but they are now our guests." Thargon's mandibles clicked together in rage and disbelief. "Impossible. You're primitives. We have records of your civilization. You barely discovered fire a few thousand years ago. Release them immediately or face the Empire's wrath." Captain Lee's smile was like winter starlight, beautiful and utterly cold. "Admiral, your Empire has been studying us for decades. The problem is we've been studying you for much longer. As if to emphasize his words, the human ship began to move. But this wasn't the clumsy maneuvering Thargon expected from primitive technology. The Dauntless flowed through space like liquid mercury, its engines producing thrust signatures that violated everything the Empire knew about physics. "Veltar, how is it moving like that?" Thargon demanded. I don't know, sir. Their propulsion system is showing quantum fluctuations I've never seen before. It's like they're bending space-time itself." The human vessel positioned itself between two of Thargon's cruisers with movements so precise and graceful that it looked choreographed. The Admiral realized with growing horror that his ships were now in a tactical disadvantage he hadn't even seen coming. "Observe," Captain Lee said simply, his image still floating above the bridge. The Dauntless fired once. A brilliant beam of coherent energy lanced out across space, not toward the Zephyrian ships, but at a massive asteroid drifting nearby. The rock, easily the size of a small moon, didn't just explode, it ceased to exist. One moment it was there, the next it was nothing but rapidly expanding particles and energy. The bridge fell silent except for the electronic chirping of overloaded sensors trying to process what they had just witnessed. That was a warning shot using 0.0003% of our available firepower. Captain Lee continued conversationally. "Would you like a demonstration of our full capabilities?" Thargon's mandibles clicked nervously as his sensor teams frantically tried to make sense of the impossible readings flooding their displays. His weapons officer, a battle-scarred Dreknari veteran of a dozen wars, was staring at his instruments with the expression of someone whose entire understanding of warfare had just crumbled. "Sir," Veltar whispered, "if that was truly less than 1% of their capability." The Admiral didn't need him to finish the sentence. If the human ship could vaporize a small moon with a casual shot, what could it do to his fleet at full power? His 3 cruisers, pride of the border fleet, would be less than insects before such technology. "Captain Lee," Thargon said, forcing his voice to remain steady. "What do you want?" "What I want, Admiral, is very simple. I want you to understand that everything you think you know about humanity is wrong." The human gestured, and new images appeared in the hologram. Dozens of derelict human ships throughout Empire space, all suddenly revealing themselves as fully operational vessels. "For the past 50 years, while your Empire has been cataloging us as a primitive species, we've been living among you, learning your weaknesses, studying your technology, preparing for this moment." More ships began decloaking around Thargon's position. Human vessels that had been invisible to sensors now appeared like ghosts materializing from the void. Each one showed the same impossible energy readings as the Dauntless. "You see, Admiral, we learned something important about galactic civilization very early in our observations. Every species in this galaxy thinks the same way. You all follow the same patterns, make the same assumptions. But humans..." Captain Lee's smile turned predatory. "We think differently." The human ship's weapons systems came online with a sound, like distant thunder. Energy readings spiked across every sensor on Thargon's flagship. "Now, Admiral, shall we discuss the terms of your surrender? Or would you prefer that demonstration I mentioned?" Admiral Thargon looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew, all showing the same mixture of terror and awe that he felt in his own hearts. The Empire's greatest strength had always been their technological superiority over primitive species. But what happened when the primitives turned out to be the most advanced predators in the galaxy? High Counselor Vethara's 8 legs carried her in nervous circles around the grand chamber of the Galactic Empire's ruling council. Her spider-like form cast shifting shadows on the polished walls as holographic displays flickered and danced around her, each one showing data that shouldn't exist. The emergency session had been called within hours of Admiral Thargon's shocking report from the Outer Rim. Representatives from 47 different species filled the floating platforms that surrounded the central speaking area, their various forms creating a bizarre symphony of alien anatomy. Crystalline beings that sang their thoughts, gas-based creatures contained in environmental suits, massive tree-like entities that communicated through chemical releases, all united in their growing panic. "Explain to me again," Vethara's voice echoed through the chamber's translation systems, "how a single primitive vessel neutralized an entire border patrol without firing a hostile shot." Intelligence Director Mordak, a hulking Draknari with battle scars covering his reptilian hide, stepped forward on his four legs. His clawed hands activated the central holographic display, filling the air above the council with tactical readouts and sensor data. "Honorable counselors, what we're seeing here challenges everything we thought we knew about the human species." His gravelly voice carried the weight of 30 years in military intelligence. "The vessel that Admiral Thargon encountered wasn't primitive at all. Our analysis suggests it was more advanced than our own flagship technologies." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. A Vorton counselor's crystalline body rang like wind chimes as he expressed his skepticism in harmonic tones. "But that's impossible," protested Counselor Zektar, a floating jellyfish-like being whose thoughts appeared as colored lights beneath his transparent dome. "We discovered Earth barely 50 standard years ago. Their species was still using chemical rockets to reach their own moon." Mordak's expression grew grimmer. "That's what we were meant to think. Our investigation has revealed something far more disturbing. The humans have been deceiving us from first contact. Our analysis suggests they've been present in our space for over a century." The chamber erupted in shocked gasps and alien exclamations as new images filled the holographic display. Ship after ship appeared, vessels that the Empire had catalogued as everything from merchant traders to research probes to diplomatic vessels. These merchant vessels that have been trading throughout our space for decades. Mordak highlighted one group of ships. Spy vessels, every single one. They've been mapping our trade routes, studying our economic weaknesses, learning our languages and customs. More images appeared. These research probes we allowed to study cosmic phenomena near our military installations? Intelligence gathering, operations. They've been scanning our defenses, recording our patrol patterns, analyzing our weapon signatures. The most shocking revelation came last. And these trade delegations we welcomed into our most secure facilities. Deep cover operatives. They've been walking through our government buildings, our military academies, our research laboratories for years. Counselor Vethara felt her multiple hearts racing as the implications became clear. How many of them are among us right now? All. Eyes turned to one particular platform where a single human figure sat calmly amid the chaos. Counselor Yuna Shin had arrived 6 months ago as part of what they believed was Earth's first formal diplomatic mission. She was a small woman by galactic standards, wearing simple dark clothing that seemed almost primitive compared to the elaborate garments of other species. "Counselor Shin," Vethara's voice carried a dangerous edge. "Did you know about this?" Yuna smiled with the serene confidence of someone holding all the winning cards. "Every civilization in this galaxy has underestimated humanity because you see us as recent arrivals. You never considered that we might have been watching, learning, preparing." She stood gracefully and activated her own holographic display. New images appeared. Human settlements on worlds the Empire thought were uninhabited. Human ships using technology that surpassed anything in the galactic database. Human operatives in positions throughout Empire space. "While you were studying us like interesting specimens, we were studying you like a military target," she continued. "Every weakness, every blind spot, every assumption you make about primitive species, we cataloged it all." War Minister Theklon, a massive armored creature resembling a living tank, slammed his weapon arms against his platform. "This is an act of war. We should mobilize the entire fleet immediately." Mordak shook his head grimly. "Our military analysts have reviewed the engagement with Admiral Thargon's fleet. The human vessel demonstrated technology that surpasses our most advanced prototypes, energy output that exceeds our theoretical maximums, weapons that can vaporize small moons with casual shots. "If they have more ships like it," began another counselor. "We do," Yuna confirmed calmly. "Many more. And they're already positioned throughout your empire." The chamber fell into stunned silence as new tactical displays appeared. Red dots began lighting up across the galactic map. Dozens, then hundreds of human vessels revealing their positions throughout Empire space. Ships that had been invisible, undetected, perfectly positioned to strike at critical infrastructure and military installations. "This is impossible," whispered Counselor Vethara. "Our sensors would have detected them." "Your sensors were designed to detect known technologies," Yuna explained. "We developed new approaches to stealth, propulsion, and energy generation, specifically to counter your detection methods. We've been testing them on you for decades." Defense Coordinator Quilra, a being of pure energy contained within a mechanical shell, processed the tactical data at superhuman speed. "The positioning is perfect. They could cripple our entire military infrastructure within hours. This level of strategic planning would have taken generations," Yuna finished. "Which is exactly how long we've been preparing for this moment." The floating platforms around the chamber began to shake as the various species represented started arguing among themselves. Some called for immediate military action, others for diplomatic solutions, still others for complete surrender. Through it all, Yuna Shin sat calmly, watching the greatest galactic power in known space realize that they had been outmaneuvered by the species they considered the least threatening in the galaxy. "What do you want?" Vethara finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Yuna's smile was gentle, but her eyes were steel. "We want to talk." Captain Do-Hyun Lee stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, watching the massive capital world of the Galactic Empire grow larger through the reinforced viewports. The planet stretched before them like a glowing jewel, its surface covered in towering cities that spiraled up into the clouds. Millions of alien species called this world home, and now they would all know that humanity had arrived not as supplicants, but as equals. Behind the Dauntless, space itself seemed to ripple as 12 more human vessels materialized from their stealth fields. Each ship was a masterpiece of engineering that made the Empire's finest vessels look like ancient relics. The sleek hulls reflected the system's star in patterns that seemed to shift and flow, their adaptive armor constantly adjusting to optimize both protection and intimidation. "Sir, you should see this," called out Lieutenant Kiwan Nam from his communication station. "We're being scanned by over 300 different sensor arrays across the planet. Every military installation, every orbital defense platform, every ship in the system is trying to figure out how we got past their defenses." Major Sunmi Choi looked up from her tactical display with a predatory grin. "They still don't understand. Even now they think this is all the ships we have." Do-Hyun nodded, knowing that hundreds more human vessels remained cloaked throughout Empire space, their crews patiently waiting for orders that might never come. The beauty of their strategy was that they had won without needing to fire a single shot. In anger, "Incoming transmission from the High Council," Lieutenant Nam reported, his voice carefully neutral despite the historic nature of the moment. "Put them through," Do-Hyun commanded, smoothing his uniform jacket and walking to the center of the bridge where the holographic communicator would capture his image. High Counselor Vethara's spider-like form appeared in the air before him, her 8 eyes focusing on his face with an intensity that would have been unnerving if he hadn't spent years studying alien psychology. Her posture was notably different from their previous encounters, less aggressive, more respectful, with the careful body language of someone who had finally recognized they were dealing with an equal. "Captain Lee," she began, her translated voice carrying formal tones that barely concealed her underlying tension. "The High Council has reviewed your proposal." Around the bridge, Do-Hyun's crew worked quietly at their stations, but he could feel their attention focused on this conversation. History was being made in real time, and everyone present knew it. "And your decision?" Do-Hyun asked calmly, his hands clasped behind his back in a relaxed posture that projected confidence without arrogance. "We accept humanity as a co-ruling species in what will now be called the Terran Galactic Alliance." The words seemed to physically pain her to speak. "Your people's tactical superiority and technological advancement make opposition inadvisable." Through the careful political language, Do-Hyun heard the truth that both sides understood perfectly. The Galactic Empire, the greatest military power in known space, was surrendering without firing a shot. They had been outmaneuvered so completely that resistance would be suicide. A wise decision, Counselor, Do-hyun replied with diplomatic grace. I believe this arrangement will benefit all our species. However, Vithara continued, her multiple eyes narrowing slightly, we must ask, how long have you been planning this? Our intelligence analysts estimate this level of coordination would require decades of preparation. Captain Lee smiled, thinking of the countless humans who had worked in secret toward this moment. Generations of engineers who had developed impossible technologies in hidden laboratories. Spies who had spent their entire lives pretending to be simple traders or researchers while mapping every weakness in galactic civilization. Military strategists who had planned for scenarios that wouldn't occur for decades. Since the day we learned we weren't alone in the universe, Counselor, he answered honestly. We just wanted to make sure we were ready for the conversation. In the hour, transmission ended, leaving the bridge in contemplative silence. Through the viewports they could see the orbital traffic around the capital world reorganizing itself, as news of the historic agreement spread through government channels. Halfway across the galaxy, on a small blue world that most galactic citizens had never heard of, President Kyuri Wu stood before a massive crowd in Seoul's Central Plaza. Behind her, holographic displays showed the Dauntless and her escort fleet holding position above the Empire's capital world. Today, humanity takes its place among the stars not as subjects seeking protection, but as partners offering strength, she declared to the cheering masses. For too long, we allowed others to underestimate us. Today, that ends. Similar celebrations erupted across Earth as the news spread. In New York, London, Lagos, and 1,000 other cities, humans looked up at the night sky knowing that their species had just become the galaxy's newest superpower. But the most impressive sight was visible only to those with the right clearance, codes, and sensor frequencies. Throughout Empire space, human vessels began decloaking around critical systems. What had appeared to be empty space suddenly revealed itself to be occupied by fleets of advanced warships, each one positioned with mathematical precision to control key trade routes, military installations, and population centers. The scope of humanity's secret expansion became clear as hundreds of ships revealed themselves. For over a century, while the galaxy had dismissed them as primitive newcomers, humans had been quietly spreading throughout known space like seeds on the wind. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Captain Do-hyun Lee watched the tactical displays showing the true extent of their deployment. Red markers indicated human assets on over 3,000 worlds, each one a testament to their species' patience and planning. Sir, Lieutenant Nam called out, we're receiving acknowledgement signals from all deployed assets. Operation Genesis is complete. The galaxy would indeed never be the same. Where once a single empire had ruled through military might, now a partnership would guide galactic civilization forward. And at the heart of that partnership stood a species that had turned their greatest weakness into their greatest strength. Humanity had been underestimated for the last time. The end.